before that, that will be the design of FSM, maybe a lift controller or something. So those two assignments, two more assignments. Yeah. Is that okay?
This isn't the assignment we are able to see on WBCM yet.
No, those assignments have not been given.
Okay. No, I wanted to ask about the given assignment, the sequential double double.
Yeah, so what about it?
Uh, the shift registers that we have to use, actually, I don't think it has been covered in the class yet.
No, those we can actually, those are very simple. I have already posted a link that PISO in that group, and next Monday we can just cover it. Shift registers are nothing. You just connect some D flip flops in series, nothing more than that. Just a chain of D flip flops. That's all. It's as simple as
So
that.
maybe we'll cover it in the lab. In the
Yeah,
next lab, we'll cover it.
actually, last Monday we do you have a free slot? I mean that do you have a free slot later today?
Later today. I guess we have a test tomorrow, so maybe.
So tomorrow do you have a free slot after the test? This,
I think.
this is a very simple topic. It will take 15-20 minutes only to cover. So you can give any if you can find if you can find a half an hour slot, that is enough.
Okay, then tomorrow's like afternoon slot, maybe two two to five don't have, I guess.
So you post a free slot in that group. Just post a free slot in that group. I think.
Okay, yeah, we'll look into it.
Yes, yeah, it'll take half an. It will just take 15 minutes. Really, it is a very trivial matter. The shift register. So yeah, okay, all right. So let us continue with this. Uh, so we started with this. So this is a sample FSM. Okay. So this is a sample FSM, and as we said that we talked about the concept of a distinguishing sequence. So distinguishing sequence means your machine. So a distinguishing sequence uh, uh, can be, is defined, maybe defined for a pair of states, Si and Sj, so that, let us say that the machine is initially, let's say that you have got two copies of the machine, and one copy of the machine, the present state is Si, in the other copy, the, the so you have, this is your machine, you have got two copies of it. And in that, so this is your machine. So you have got two copies. And in this copy, the present state is Si, and in this copy, the present state is Sj. So, if you have a distinguishing sequence, so this will take you to some state and this will take you to some other state. So this is your distinguishing sequence. So it will take you to some, and these are, the distinguishable. So basically these are distinguishable. And usually when we talk of a distinguishing sequence, we mean the minimum distinguishing sequence, because once you have distinguished between the two states, applying more input is really useless. So you can say that minimum, or for that matter you can say shortest. This is usually implied, shortest distinguishing sequence. So basically this machine, one copy is in SI, the other copy in SJ, you apply the distinguishing sequence, so you can distinguish between, at some point is distinguished by the output, and this is at the end of the distinguishing sequence. Alright, so that is the idea. So now here you see, so here we already explained this machine last time. This machine was explained last time. So we have this is the initial equivalence partition. This is the initial equivalence actually this is not truly equivalent, equivalent partition, or you can say initial uncertainty. Alright, so I put it in equivalence because this is not really equivalent. This is just an initial, guess of the equivalence partition. So now if you see that if you apply a 0 as an input, from the output you can't distinguish anything because all the outputs are 0. But if you apply a 1, you find that if you are in A or C or E, the output is 1. So that means A, C, E, the output is 1, and if you are in B, D or F, the output is 0. So that means if you apply 1 and you get the output 0, then you can say that you must have been in states B, D or F, and if you get the output 1, you know that you must have been in states A, C or E. Alright? Now let us say that you were in states A, C or D. Now what is the successor? From A, as you can see, you go to D. From B you go to D, and from C and D you go to B, and from E you go to F, and from this you go to C. Alright, you go to C. So now you find that this, so as a result of applying 1, so A will go to D, alright, yeah, ACE will go to BDF. So these are equivalent. This so BDF continues to be equivalent. Sorry, BDF. So these are still equivalent. All right, and this thing DBC. So B and D are in the same partition, But C is not in the same partition, right? C is not in the same partition. So what you see is, so AC and E, if you apply a 1, the output is 1 here. In this case, the output is 0. All right. So by the output, you know that you're either in AC or E or BD and F, or BD or F. All right. This is as a result of applying apply 1. All right. You apply 1. So this is the result. All right. So you apply. So now you can see that AC and E take you to BD or F. This you can't distinguish with the application of 1. This is the same. And here if you have applied, but B and D are in the same partition, C is in a different partition. All right. So as a result, what happens is, if so because these are in different partitions, what it means is that next, if you apply a 1, you will get a 1 from C and 0 from B and D. So you can distinguish between these two. All right. Okay. So now, so here also, if you apply, now let us see, if you apply a 1, what happens? D, B, and F. If you apply a 1, so D goes to B, and B goes to D, and F goes to C. All right, F goes to C. So here again, these are in different partitions, right? These are in different partitions. So what is happening is, because actually what is happening is, this induces a refinement of this partition. So the successor AC and E are in the same partition. So basically what is happening is, this partition remains the same. As a result of this, what is happening is, this partition remains the same. No, sorry, I think I'm making a little AC and E. Yeah, AC and E. You can't distinguish between AC and E here, as a result of application of 1. So as a result of application of 1, AC and E, their successors belong to the same partition, BD and F. All right. As of now. So as such, you will say that okay. So you do not. This doesn't lead to a refinement. So let me just put it this way. I'll come to this later. This does not lead to a refinement immediately. But here this does lead to a refinement. So what is happening is, if you apply a 0, these are going to different partitions. All right, D, B, and C, these are going to different partitions. So what happens is, if you apply a after that, if you apply a 1, you can distinguish between this. So what is really happening is that you are refining this partition, B, D, and F. B, D, and F is getting refined. This blue is the refinement. This is the transition. So B, D, and F gets refined to, and here your AC and F, AC and E, these remain the same, because as you can see, as of now, they still remain the same. Now BD and F have got refined to BD and F. All right. So now, if you make a transition, if you make a transition, so here you find that if you make the transition, that will be actually this transition, DB and F. So here you see that this will lead to this refinement, because A is going to D, C is going to B. Okay, A is going to D, C is going to B, which are in the same partition, but E is going to F, which is in a different partition. So now you further refine between. You get it? Now you see the next transition. You see the next transition. Well, if you make a, so you can have transitions on both zeros, 0 and 1. Okay. So now, if you let us see, if you consider the one transition. So one transition, AC goes to BD, E goes to F, and B and D go to both B. So, and F goes to C. So now on a one transition you can't distinguish. But let us see the zero transition. So now A goes to D and C goes to B. Okay. So if you see the zero transition, A goes to D and C goes to, sorry. Zero transition, A goes to E and C goes to, A goes to E and C goes to E. So you can't distinguish. And B goes to F and D goes to, B goes to F and D also goes to F. Okay, so so here also there is, you can't distinguish. So let us see. So on zero transition, you don't have any distinction. On a one transition also, so this is on a zero transition, okay? This is for zero. And on a one transition, A goes to, on a one transition, both the A goes to D and C goes to B. Okay, this is on a 1, and here that is, and this is on a 1. B goes to D, B goes to D, and D goes to B. All right. So now you see that there is no further refinement. All right, there is no further refinement. So what you see is that this partition, so you can no longer distinguish between no matter what you do, you cannot distinguish between A and C, you cannot distinguish between B and D. So these are your equivalence partitions. Okay, so here states A and C are equivalent, states B and D are equivalent. All right. So you had initially 6 states in the machine. Now you got 4 states in the machine, because you can merge A and C. So here I think you will see that A and C, the transitions E. So both of them have transition, and A goes to D and C goes to B, but these are also equivalent. So you really can't distinguish between A and C and B and D. All right. So these are your this is your final equivalence partition. All right. This is the final equivalence partition. So what you can see is that you start with the initial partition and you consider transitions on either 0 or 1. Okay. And So if you can distinguish, so how do you make the distinction? First of all, by the output. Okay, if there is a difference in the output, or if the successors belong to separate partition. Okay, if the successors belong to separate partitions, then also you can distinguish, because if they are in separate partitions, because those partitions can be distinguished. All right. So either if the outputs are different, or if the successors go to different partitions, then also you can distinguish. So this is the way you can construct. You can find the equivalence classes for the states. So the states in a particular equivalence class, those are not distinguishable. So finally, the number of equivalence classes that you get corresponds to the number of the distinct number of states. And so is this process okay? Are you okay with this process? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Uh, Now, the next thing is that it is useful to note that the equivalence partition is unique. All right. It is actually quite easy to see the equivalence partition. So suppose you have got P and P dash. So these are two equivalence partitions. Okay, now suppose these are not unique. Suppose these are not unique. So you must have one partition which has, say, Si and Sj, all right, and in P dash, this Si and Sj must be in different partitions, right? There must be at least a pair of such, because otherwise, if you can't find any such pair, then the two equivalence partitions will not be distinct. So if this thing, so if P and P dash are distinct, then there must be a pair of states Si and Sj which are in the same partition in P, but in different partition in P dash. All right. So so now, as you can see, that because these are in different partitions in P dash, they can't be distinct. They can be distinguished, so they cannot be in the same partition in P. So from that argument, you can say that these two partitions cannot be distinct. Two equivalence partitions cannot be distinct. So your equivalence partition has to be unique. All right. So this is a fairly simple process, but this works for when your FSM is completely specified. Now, have you studied this Myhill? Narrow theorem. Have you studied this Myhill?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So do you see any similarity in the process which is involved in the Myhill-Nerod theorem and this mechanism? Actually, it is based on that, because in Myhill-Nerod theorem, you rely on distinguishing sequences to determine equivalence. Actually, there also you determine equivalence partition, but the work is slightly easier over here. Why? Because in case of a finite automata, the only way to make the distinction is you check whether as a result of application of the distinguishing sequence, your machine goes to a final state or a non-final state. So you can distinguish between a final state and a non-final state. But over here, you have more scope for distinguishing. Why? Because you also have the output. Okay, I mean, you can computationally the two are equivalent, but in operational terms there are differences, because here you also have the output, you know, for each state. So you can also look at the output to distinguish. So that makes it a little easier. So it is really the same process. The only difference is that for finite state machine optimization, you get the benefit of looking at the output. You don't have that benefit because in a finite automata there is no specific output. You can, I mean, or you can say that the output is trivial. That is the output of a final state is 1, the output of a non-final state is 0. So in that sense, that is the only output. But here you have a greater variety of output. So that allows you to make the it helps you to distinguish between the states faster. All right. Okay, so this is the state minimization when for completely specified FSMs. Now, for incompletely specified FSMs, the method is a little more involved. So first of all, let us look at some examples of of incompletely specified FSMs. So the first one, the MA we have just called. So I think this is quite similar to, no, this is not so similar. Okay, never mind. So if you look at MA, so we have got a number of incompletely specified FSMs here. So if you look at it, in some cases, for example, say if you just look at MA and MB. So in case of MA, you find that all the transitions are well defined. Okay, all the transitions are well defined, but in some cases, the outputs are not defined. Means those are don't care. You really don't care what the output is. It's not important. All right. So let us say that when you're in state B, you really don't. You're not too concerned about what output you get when you apply 0. Let us. I mean that is how you are. That is specific to that machine or the application. So in one case, your transitions are perfectly defined or are completely specified, but your outputs are incompletely defined. And as you can see in the other case, let us say you have MB. So in MB, even your transitions are not fully defined. Okay, your transitions are also not fully defined. So in other words, that if you look at that earlier diagram that we had drawn, so let us say if your state in this case, let us say your state is say this is say A. All right, let us say this is A, and in this case your state is B. So what happens is, if you apply a 0, this transition is defined, but this transition is not defined, so you really don't know where you're going to go next. All right. So what do you do about that? So we'll see how we can handle that. I mean, the simple thing is that, so there we talk about compatibility. We'll come to compatibility. So, but note that. So basically, this is transition on 0. All right, this is transition on 0. So if you apply a 0, you know that your next state is B, but here you don't know the next state. Now in this particular case, if you look at this MB, your next state is, so although you don't know, but you somehow you know the output. Already it says that your output has to be 0. So on the application of 0, uh, uh, I mean, if it is not defined, you have the freedom to choose. It is not defined, so you don't care. So, you can set it to B. In this case, on B, it goes to B, all right? But does it help you? Well, it doesn't help you in this case much, because the output is 1 here and the output is 0 here. So you can't really merge the states. So here it doesn't help you to set this to B, because you cannot, that will not enable you to make A and B equivalent. Of course, because of this, A and B cannot be equivalent. But let us look at this situation here. So here neither the output nor the transition is defined. So here, I mean, if you consider the other situation, that is, instead of applying 0, if you apply a 1, then what happens is, if you apply a 1, then what happens is, in this case, on a 1, on a 1, this output is not defined. I mean, the next state is not defined, output is not defined. Here, of course, both are defined. So here it is, as you can see, it is B0, and here, both are undefined. So you have the option. You can make it B, because it is undefined. You can make it B0. So in that case, for 1, it would be, this is for 1, this is for 1. For 1, this part would be compatible. Of course, for 0, it isn't compatible. So it isn't really compatible. So that is the idea. That means, if it is not defined, you have certain options. You have certain options which can help you to make those states mergeable. So you have certain options. So let us just see how we can. All right, so let us just look at some definitions. So for a completely specified machine, two states Si and Sj of machine name are compatible. So we are talking about compatible states. So if and only if for every input sequence the same output sequence will be produced, regardless of whether Si or Sj is the initial state. So that is what you saw, right? So two equivalent states are always compatible, because, irrespective of whether the machine is in Si or Sj, if for every sequence that you apply, that means you do not have a distinguishing sequence. If for every sequence you have the same output, all right, for every sequence if you have the same output, then there is no way you can distinguish between those two states. So you can say that those two states are compatible, all right. Now, what can you say when you come to an incompletely specified machine? When you try to do this, you run into some difficulties. So first of all, if you have two issues. One is that the output may not be specified. All right, the output may not be specified, but the next the transitions may be specified. So that's a slight that situation is easier to handle. So let us consider the situation that so we are considering incompletely specified machines. incompletely specified sequence. So we consider the case when so the next state is defined, or you can say next states are defined but outputs are not always defined. Alright, so suppose this is the situation. Then how do you so their compatibility is defined as follows. Compatibility is defined as follows. So on the application of any input sequence, the outputs match when they are both defined. Alright, so this is the point to note, when they are both defined. So if the outputs are defined, they should match. If they are not defined, if both of them are not defined, then you are not so concerned. And why are you not concerned? Because if one output is not defined, you always have the option to choose how you will define that output. So you can choose you can choose the output so that the two states become compatible. That is, they don't conflict. All right. So we consider the compatibility that way. So the outputs should match when they are both defined. All right. That is how we consider the compatibility. Of course, this is irrespective of whether the machine irrespective of whether the machine is in SI or SJ. All right. So this is about when the next state is defined but the output is not necessarily defined. So I think we will stop here now. We'll continue this discussion in the next class. Have you so have you been able to identify the free slot for the lab then? Yeah. Are you there? Have you been able to identify the free slot for the lab? All right, then I think, I don't know, I'm not getting any reply from anyone. So